Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, mysterious voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I've found in my travels. Today, it is the end of one month and the beginning of another, so I wanted to do the usual wrap-up and TBR. Talking about what I read in September and what I plan to read in October. In terms of September, I do think it was a good month for books. Certainly a lot of better reads than in months past. I wasn't sort of preoccupied with crime and punishment, so I was able to get through a bit more than I usually do. And I'm really happy with the books that I did read. Especially the manga. And then what do I plan on reading in October? Well, I'll get to that later in the video, but I do want to note that it is the Spooktober month, October. Some of the books and many of the short stories, all of the short stories and poems will have a spooky tinge to them. So that should be a lot of fun. I do try to read horror outside of October, but October is Halloween, so it always feels really great to read it there or watch that kind of media there rather than sort of focusing on it in, say, May of all months or something like that. So without further ado, let's talk about the wrap-up and TBR, and I will move on from there. So what did I read and watch in September? For the usual movie that I do with Lucas from The Bits of Lit, we talked about Fantastic Planet, which was a French movie by René Laloux. I thought it was okay, but it wasn't of as much substance as the other movies that we watched for this channel. And for the month of October, we are watching Possession, which I believe is a horror movie with Sam Neill. It's a but it's an overseas movie, foreign film. So be on the lookout for that. And then in terms of books, I read Winter of Our Discontent by John Steinbeck, which I thought was great. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which I thought was a lot of fun. I had never really watched the TV show, but I read the manga for the first time, and it was a lot of fun. I found it at my local library. Don't forget to patronize your local libraries, and I really liked the sort of contrast between Joseph, Joestar, and Dio. It was a lot of fun, especially given that Dio is such a jerk face and whatnot. And then I also read Berserk Volume 13, which is probably the best of the month. A really great addition to the story. Also really sad for what happens to the Band of the Hawk in it. And I do think the Berserk series, especially the Golden Age arc, is probably one of the best stories in fiction. I stand by that. A lot of people, don't think manga can tell as complex and deep stories. I thought that at one point, and I was proven wrong. I think that that Berserk, Kentaro Miura is doing something amazing, doing some wonderful storytelling, and really presenting a lot of challenging ideas to the readers, so definitely worth reading in my opinion. I also read a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comic called Change is Constant, which I thought was okay. It largely had the disadvantage of being the thing I read after Berserk Volume 13, and I don't think anything was really going to hold up to that, so it was mostly just fine, not a lot to write home about. And then American Born Chinese, which I thought was boring, not as enticing or interesting as the author seems to think. Other people seem to like it, but I think there's a little bit of trouble in connecting the sort of present experience of these Asian immigrants, these Asian young boys, with the sort of mysticism that happens in the past. I don't feel like it's as well written or well connected as it could have been. And then I also read Honor, which I thought was a good book, but it had a weak ending because the author tried to, in my opinion, tried to create a positive ending out of an ending where that was supposed to be sad. They're like, oh, like this killing of this woman, this religious killing is bad, but look at this couple. They are very happy together. And I feel like the biggest problem is that the romance that they're trying to create in the book, it didn't feel natural. It felt very rushed in the ending. So it was a very good book, but not it didn't quite land as well as I would hope. Then I also read Lush by Natasha Friend, which was a young adult fiction story about alcoholism in a family, and I thought it was pretty good. A very solid book that introduces a lot of serious topics for young people, and it's very important to talk about that sort of thing. I mentioned that it was a banned book, so definitely seek it out, because if a book is being banned, it's usually something that's worth looking at, because it's always important to ask, why are people trying to ban it? And then I also read The King Must Die by Mary Renault, which I thought was largely boring. A story about Theseus, but it just couldn't hold my attention, I think. And then, of course, I also read Sin City, which a review should be coming out for that soon, and I thought it was pretty good. Very interesting sort of take, maybe a subversion of the anti-hero of the sort of detective story of noir in general. I read a number of short stories, including The Challenge by Gary Soto, which was fun. Little Beast, which I thought was just okay. Story of an Hour by Kate Chopin, which was great, probably the best of the month for short stories. And The Child's Story by Charles Dickens, which I thought was mostly bland. I thought it was fun at the time, but it didn't really stick with me all that well. As per usual, sometimes I talk about a short story and then I forget about it by the end of the month because it didn't really have that much of a punch, and I feel like that was the case with Charles Dickens here. And then I read a number of poems as well. Be sure to check out my Poetry Thursday playlist for more information on that. But what do I plan on reading in the month of October? In terms of books, I want to get to The Road by Cormac McCarthy, which isn't really Halloween focused or a scary story. But a future dystopia is scary to me. No, I actually just wanted to get to more Cormac McCarthy, maybe front load or back load the end of the year with all these wonderful books that might present new opportunities or new contenders for the best of the year. I have a feeling that The Road should be good. I read No Country for Old Men and Blood Meridian, and both were fantastic books. So I have no doubt that more Cormac McCarthy should be interesting. And then a number of graphic novels, including the Berserk series and Demon Slayer, which is more manga than anything else. So be on the lookout for that. Some Bevan books, which I'm finally going to get to. I keep putting it off and never really get to it, but I'm definitely going to get to at least one or two of them in October. So hopefully I finally managed to get to that. And then I did pick out some sort of scary books at random, just by like throwing a dart at a board. And one of them is Jawbone by Monica Ojeda, which is a horror book. And then The Auctioneer, which is about fascism, by Joan Sampson. I'm very much looking forward to those. And then whatever I pick up from my local library should be a lot of fun. I have a number of short stories planned, including one, as per usual, by Edgar Allan Poe, and one by Stephen King. I checked out Skeleton Key, I believe it was, a short story collection. And I've never really been able to make it through any Stephen King stories, and I haven't talked about him on this channel. But I'm looking forward to talking about at least one of his short stories, so we'll see how that goes. And then I also have a number of poems I want to get through that are all spooky or creepy kind of focused, so be on the lookout for that. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the wrap-up and TBR for September and October. Very much looking forward to these spooky stories that I have planned for October, and I'm very happy that I read what I read in September. If you have any recommendations, particularly scary stories, or just books you think I might be interested in, as per usual, make a comment below. I would love to hear from you and take those recommendations. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that people can find out about this channel or some of the books that I'm talking about here. Also join the Discord if you want to have further conversations about books, movies, and other forms of media. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and spooktober travels. Farewell.